अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयोः श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। नमः श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे। ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। Dear Swami Tattwamayananda Ji, Swami Rideshananda Ji, I am Maharaj, and the assembled devotees. Maharaj happens to be the head of our Vedanta Society of Northern California, one of the biggest centers in the order in America. And Maharaj has been there for a number of years now. He is doing wonderful work spreading the message of Vedanta. He has given hundreds of lectures in places like Stanford University and to the leading intellectuals of America. Maharaj is a deep scholarly bent of mind. He is perhaps the only monk of the order who has studied Sanskrit until Mahapadhyaya, considered the highest class of Sanskrit scholars of the nation. Subsequently, also Maharaj has devoted enormous time to deep study. For example, history is one of his favorite subjects. It's a very deep knowledge of history. So, it's a weekday and it's cold, naturally. Otherwise, it would have been very nice if we could get a much larger audience. Maybe Maharaj always has to travel. He's coming for a very special conference in Benares. They've invited him. So that's why he's not able to give us a weekend. Maharaj has chosen a very wonderful topic. Rather, we suggested to him. Asti-Bhati-Priyam is very, you can say, roughly translated as existence, knowledge, bliss, or Satchitananda. The subtle difference between these two itself, Maharaj can probably take some 10 classes, so much. So it's very difficult for him to condense such a huge topic in such a short span of time. But yet, he would do, that is the knack of scholars. They can adjust to the audience, the demand, the time. Because this is a very important aspect, because broadly we have heard of Advaita, that everything is Brahman. That is the only reality or the only existence. But we are also constantly, every day, confronted with this world, existential world. So this is a constant dichotomy, problem in resolving this issue. How it is all one? How do we see this duality? How do we see this manifestation? How do you explain our behavior? How do you explain our samsara? How do you explain our sufferings? ऐसे बहुत सारे प्रश्न हैं. सब कुछ आप समझ पाएंगे आप ठीक से अद्वैत जो तत्व का समझ पाएंगे. So naturally, this comes, this Asti-Bhati-Priyam is normally not a separate topic. It comes under several ideas, aspects about existence, utpatti, vinash. In the context of all that is discussed, since someone heard Maharaj discussing this topic as a part of his lecture elsewhere and was so impressed. So he requested Maharaj, can you request Maharaj to speak on that? And that is how we chose this topic. Now I request our dear Maharaj to dive deep into this subject.
Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmassurupine Avataravarishthaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. Sudismritipurananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram. My pranams to Swami Tattwamayananda Ji Maharaj, my namaskar to Hrideshananda Ji Maharaj and the brahmacharis and friends, devotees who have gathered here. For me, it's a great blessing to be here, to be back here. In fact, I've been here many times in the past. On several occasions on my way to different parts of India, I have come to this place and have enjoyed your hospitality, and always a great joy to meet Tattwamayananda Ji Maharaj here. Coming straight to the subject, Asti-Bhati-Priyam. This statement comes in the Saraswati Upanishad in Rishi Viveka, which is an important small tiny prakarana grantha of Shankaracharya, and elsewhere by reference. Asti-Bhati-Priyam nama rupam chet amsha panchakam Aditrayam Brahmarupam Jagadrupam Tatodvayam. This is the statement. This is most well quoted statement. In a way, it is a simple factor, a simple truth. Everything has got two dimensions: the eternal, the immortal, the infinite, and the non-eternal, the perishable, the impermanent elements. Everything in this world. And Asti-Bhati-Priyam constitute the absolute reality. Nama and Rupa constitute the non-absolute. The Vyavaharika and the Pratibhasika combined, Nama and Rupa. Primarily the Vyavaharika. Paramarthika is Asti-Bhati-Priyam. Now its most well-known counterpart is Satchidananda. Before entering the subject, just to create a background, in our Indian tradition, whenever we decide as to what is the authentic and the non-authentic, what is primarily authentic, important, and the opposite of it, we always consider what the Sruti upholds. Sruyate iti Sutihi. So, Sruti is something from which we hear and learn about the absolute reality. There are many Pramana slokas in the Smriti literature which proclaim that whenever we try to decide whether a ritual, a belief, a practice, a convention, or a philosophical doctrine, whatever it may be, whether it is to be taken as the absolute authentic statement or not, we should listen to the Sruti. And Sruti, in a way, it means the entire four Vedas, Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda, with the Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, Upanishad. All together can be called the Sruti. Sruyade Dharma Anaya Idi Amnayaka Vedaha. That is a Mimamsa statement. Whatever is the source of spiritual knowledge by which we come to know Dharma, that is also Sruti. But primarily it means the Upanishads. Three of the Smritikaras make this statement very clear. Shruti Smriti Virodeshu Shrutireva Gariyasi Avirodetu Sadam Karyam Smartam Vaidikavat Sada. This is the statement of Jabala Smriti. Suppose you are performing a ritual in your home, or you do some shraddha or some special event you are performing, then what you do? Let us say what the Shruti says. Sruti Smriti Purananam Virodho Etar Drishyate Tatra Sraudam Pramanam Syat Tayo Dvaithe Smriti Vara. This Vyasa Smriti says. Sruti, Smriti and Purana. Purana is the least important. Shruti or Upanishad the most important. In between, Smriti comes. Again, Shruti, Smriti, Puraneshu, Virodeshu, Parasparam, Purvam Vili Yasyat Idi Nyaya Vido Viduhudi Avastha Smriti. It means, in simple statement, is what the Upanishads tell you, that should be taken seriously. Now, the entire Upanishad literature can be summarized into 4 Mahavakyas. Tattwamasi from Chandogya, Samaveda, Aham Brahmasmi from Yajurveda, that is Brihadaranyaka, and Prajnanam Brahma from Aitareya, the Rigveda, and Ayam Atma Brahma from Mandukya, Atharvaveda. The central teachings of all these four Vedas, Mahavakyas and Upanishads have been summarized in three different directions. One is called Tadastha Lakshana. What is the absolute reality? Asti-Bhati-Priyam or Satchidanandam. The absolute reality is nothing but Brahman. And that Brahman cannot be normally explained, described, categorized, or verbalized. Guru Maharaj says something, whatever is stated, whatever remains unstated by the mind, that alone is the truth, which is not uchishta, not that being diluted by verbal statement. That is Brahman. And that absolute reality only can be experienced, can never be explained. But we try to explain something in words. We have to use language to think. So, at the lowest level, the primary level, we try to say, Ito va imani bhudani jayante ena jatani jivanti prayanta visanti tad vijiknyasasva tad brahma. Whatever is the source of all the entire creation, whatever sustains this world, whatever is finally the point of dissolution, in an indirect way, we are trying to imply the absolute reality. That reality from which the world emerges, where it is sustained, where it is finally dissolved, that is Brahman, an indirect way of indicating Tadastha Lakshana. Very indirect. At the next stage, we try to come closer to a definition, a description. I mentioned earlier, Brahman cannot be described, defined, or explained. It is said that Brahman is beyond Panchashabda Pravritti Nishedhaka. That is Bhashikara's statement. 5 types of verbalization. How do we normally explain things? Either by trying to find out what this person is doing, or some of that person's or the object's characteristics, or some relationship. It's called Dravya Jadi Guna Sambandha. You can never explain or describe anything without using any of these 5 points of verbalization. You may say a flower is white. So you are using guna, the property. You may say he is a musician. You are trying to explain that person in terms of what he is doing. He is a musician, he sings songs. He is a painter, or he is a cook, or he is a gardener, things like that. Some karma. Or he is my brother, my uncle, sambandha. So karma, guna, sambandha. Sometimes we may say, well, it's like sun. It's like kind of dravya. Means so the protection. Nobody says, what is sun like? You don't ask the question. Sun is so well known, so obvious. Then jati. This particular object belongs to the particular category. It is something made of wood. It's made of Homo sapiens. Some other mammals, some other different genetic characteristics. Brahman can never be explained like that. Because Brahman is beyond Panchashabda Pravritti operations. There is no verbalization. It is Avang Manasa Gochara. Mind and words cannot see them, define them, reach them. Then how do we try to understand? Just say, well, the source of all this, the origin of everything in this world, the point, the reality that sustains the entire world, the point of dissolution. Ito va imani bhudani jayante. It's found in the Taittiriya Upanishad. Janmadhyasya, you find the Brahma Sutra. So still we try to understand, so we use Satchidananda. Sat, Chit, Ananda. This is the second step. From Yatava Imani Bhudani Jayanti Tarastha Lakshana, Virisurupa Lakshana. See, well known, Brahman is of the nature of existence, absolute existence. Brahman is of the nature of absolute awareness, jnanam, chit. And Brahman is of the nature of absolute bliss. This is the closest that we can go. Beyond this, we cannot reach Anubhuti. You know, if you read Guru Maharaj's life, you find when Totapuri just uttered the Tattwamasi Upadesha Vakya, immediately the Upadesha Vakya created in Sri Ramakrishna its correspondence Anubhuti Aham Brahmasmi. Immediately he entered Samadhi. Those who have reached the highest level of spiritual evolution, for them, the moment the Upadesha Mahavakya, the Tattwamasi Mahavakya is uttered, it creates the corresponding Anubhuti, Aham Brahmasmi. It is technically called the Shabda Aparokshawada. The moment you hear something, immediately you relate it. Just like suppose every day you are traveling from one place to another place, from Delhi to Agra, if you are driving every day. Then if I tell you on the way to Agra there is a building, immediately you understand. Every day you are going. But suppose you have never driven a car from Delhi to Agra. If somebody tells you there is a building there, you won't be able to understand. You have to GPS system, you have to go for some of the manuals. But suppose every day you are going, there is no need. Similarly, a person, a spiritual seeker who has reached the highest level of sadhana, chadushta sampatti. Maybe many of you are familiar with this. Nitya nitya vastu viveka ihamutra phalavoga viraga samadhishaka sampatti mumukshutvam. When you have fully attained all these great qualities, then if you just happen to hear Mahavakya once, immediately that Mahavakya Sravana will create the corresponding Anubhuti. There are two instances in the history of the recorded. One is when Govinda Bhagavad-pada taught Sri Shankaracharya the Mahavakya, immediately he became Anubhuti, he got Anubhuti. The other one is Totapuri. Now, if you are not so well advanced, then if you listen to, let's say you listen to a great spiritual statement, you may listen very carefully with all attention. You may go back to your home, you may take a book and read again, think and find out. Slowly it may take several years, maybe several life cycles, maybe after 100 lives later you may realize the truth of what you stated. In fact, the very fact that you are listening to this statement shows that sometime in your past life you have heard this. Try to make an effort to understand the meaning of spiritual truths. That's why we feel at home we have the patience to listen to great spiritual ideas. Even Sravana needs some kind of spiritual evolution. Otherwise you will run away. When Vedanta comes, people run away from it. There are wonderful things all over the world. We feel quite, we don't have any problem. But when we listen to spiritual discourses and then we carefully listen, that means our mind has already acquired a lot of samskaras in a past life, so we have attained some degree of spiritual fitness. Now, Asti-Bhati-Priyam is the highest of this statement. So I am coming to that. Why it is called the highest? Satchidananda, if you were a Sat, then you are indirectly denying the possibility of Achit. Suppose you make the statement, my name is Ram, in a classroom, the teacher asks, what's your name? You say, I'm Ram. You are making the statement, my name is Ram, but you are also indicating that I am not Krishna. I am not Baladeva. There may be many other students in the classroom with so many other names, X, Y, Z, etc. I am Ram means I am not Krishna, I am Ram. Because there are others who are sitting there. So, technically, when you use the word Sat, you are denying the possibility of Achit. Oh, sorry, Asat. When you mention the word Sat, you are denying the possibility of it being Asat. Asat in Vedanta means something that we cannot even conceive of, think of. We'll come to that later. Again, when you use the word Chit, you are not only making a statement, it is Chit. You are also indicating that it is not Achit. It is not Jata. So, but you don't deny something unless there is a remote possibility of its existence, So, in the Bhashya of Shankaracharya, it will be repeated in the Vartika, it says, Prasaktasya ka prastavaka, prasaktasya ko nishedhaka, aprasaktasya ka prastavaka, aprasaktasya ko nishedhaka. It's a very famous statement, very funny also, very philosophically loaded. But it means, what is obvious, you don't make a statement. Suppose say, I have 5 fingers on my right hand. You'll be certified by a psychiatrist if you make the statement, I have 5, I have a head, I have 2 eyes. You don't make the statement. Why? Prasakta, it is so obvious. Everyone knows that you have got a head. I have a head. You don't say that. Prasaktasya ka prastavaka. No need to make a statement. Ko nishedhaka. And you don't say, I don't have a head. Again, aprasaktasya ka prastavaka. I don't have a tail. You don't say. Because it is so obvious you don't have a tail. So, of course, you don't say, I have a tail. You don't say. But you don't say, I have no tail, that also you don't say. So, a statement of affirmation or negation is possible only if there is a remote possibility of its existence somewhere, somehow. That's why prasaktasya ka prastavaka, prasaktasya ko nishedhaka, aprasaktasya ka prastavaka, aprasaktasya ko nishedhaka. Now, the problem with Satchidananda is, indirectly, you are implying that there is a possibility of something which is Achit or Asat or Dukkha in the context of Ananda. When you use the word Satchidananda, without there being some possibility of Dukkha, you don't say Ananda. Because as a coin cannot exist with only one side, it should have 2 sides. Similarly, in Vedanta, Satchidananda is certainly much greater, much more profound than Tavastha Lakshana. It is Swarupa Lakshana. But still, it has one problem. There is the implication of something else existing. Asat may be there, that's why you say, I'm Satchidananda. Jadatva must be there, that's why you say, Chit. Dukkha is there. Not now, maybe there's a possibility, a remote possibility of Dukkha should be there to make the statement Ananda. But in Asti-Bhati-Priyam, you know what it means? There, it is almost like a coin with only one side. There is no Nishedha here. In fact, in Vedanta, the absolute reality is explained sometimes by bringing together 2 mutually contradictory statements. Na antaprakyam, na bhishprakyam, na prakyam, na prakyam. You find in the Mandukya Upanishad 7th mantra, na antaprakyam, na bhishprakyam, na ubhedaprakyam, na prakyam, na prakyam, etc. The absolute reality is not prajna, not the seer in dream, nor the seer in waking state, bhishprakyam, not ubheda prakyam, not a combination of both. That absolute reality is beyond words, beyond mind, beyond verbalization. But without making a statement, two mutually contradictory terms are intertwined. This is a Vedantic way of implying that it is beyond words. Now, there's so much about Asti-Bhati-Priyam. Now, how do we normally realize this truth? In the Vedantic tradition, Adhyaropa Avavada Prakriya is there. You cannot explain, indicate, or imply the absolute reality because it's beyond thoughts, beyond words, beyond any kind of verbalization. But you can try to imply it by saying what it is not. Nedi Nedi. There comes, Nama and Rupa. Jagat. Now, the one main problem that we frequently face in the US is people have this terrible, absolutely stupid notion that Vedanta denies the fact that I am sitting there in front of you giving a talk. You are sitting there, Vedanta says, no, you are not sitting there. This table is not there. So Vedanta is a kind of life-negating, world-negating, nihilistic philosophy. But Vedanta is just the opposite of it. Vedanta only tells us that you won't be sitting there for all times. And this table was not there all the time. It is there for some time, it comes, it stays, and goes away. So, agachadi or jayate, tishtadi for some time, and then gachati. It is born, it's coming, then it stays for some time, and then it's no longer there, it goes away. That is Jagat. Gachati is Jagat. It comes, stays, goes away, and returns. Why? Nama and Rupa. Nama and Rupa together constitute this Jagat. And the second preposition of Advaita Vedanta is Jagat Mithya. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. This is the most difficult part of Vedantic statement. Brahman, of course, obvious. Anubhavaika Vedyam we can only experience. What about Jagat Mithyatvam? I make a statement. Pure Advaita is simple spiritual common sense. Even a child going to primary school can tell you this world will not be like this after 100 years, after 10 years, 15 years. Even the city of Delhi was not like this last year. Won't be like this after a month. Everything in this world is changing, and whatever is changing cannot be called the absolute reality. That which remains the same in the past, present, and future. We call it Trikara Atida, Sadvikara Atida. Jayade, Asti, Vadhade, Viparinavade, Apakshede, Vinashadi. That is born, existing, growing, evolving, decaying, and disappearing or dying out. 6 changes. So everything that belongs to time, which was born sometime in the past, remaining for some time, disappearing in future, again returning, that cannot be called the absolute reality. That cannot be called Paramarthika Satta. It is there, but only in the relative sense, that is called Vyavaharika Satta. Now, if modern Americans are not able to understand, there is no problem. Even Ramanuja did not understand this. So, Ramanuja, if you read Sri-Bhashya, Ramanuja came almost 350 years after Shankaracharya. He wrote this Sri-Bhashya, and Sudarshana Suri wrote the well-known Tiga on it. It's called Sudaprakashika. It's a very interesting book. In the Sri-Bhashya, in the early part of his Samannaya direction, it's called Maha Purvapaksha, the great objection. So Ramanujacharya raises 7 objections called Sapta Anupavatti Vad. Upavatti means logically defensible. The opposite, Anubhavati means something logically untenable. Logically cannot be explained, cannot be defined. So 7 arguments by which Ramanuja, at least he thought, he can demolish the Advaitin doctrine of Jaganmithyatvam. Again, Jaganmithyatvam is not a category in Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta was often called Mayavada by Ramanuja, by Madhvacharya, even by Baladeva who wrote Govinda Bhashya on Chaitanya School of Philosophy, and even though Vallabha Nimbarkar wrote Vedanta Parya, the Saurabha, small book on Brahma Sutra. In all these books, they say Advaita is Mayavada, Advaita is only Brahmavada. Maya, Mithya, Avidya, all these terms are used in Advaita only to explain certain things. For example, you mistake a rope for a snake. Now, till you bring light, you thought it is a snake and you are running away. You may break your neck, go to hospital, all because you thought it is a snake. So the point is, the snake is not absolute non-entity. It is there in the forest, maybe in the zoo, but it is not there in that room. In that room there is only a rope. Now, and this phenomenon called Adhyasa is related to Maya, Mithya, etc. So Ramanuja raises certain objections. Very interesting. I shall take very little time, maybe 20 minutes. The first objection is called Asraya Anubhavattivada. Means, what is the locus or the support of this avidya? What is avidya? Avidya is something that makes us believe that there is something that actually doesn't exist. So Maya is something that we are part of and we believe in till we are out of it. Vidyade idi vidya. Now vidyade idi, but not really speaking. This is vidya. What is avidya? Avidya is something that we realize to be avidya only when we come out of it. Snake is something that we think is existing in the room, and we go and bring a stick and or maybe trying to switch on the light. Till that moment, it is snake only. Snake was in our mind. Adhyasa is Smriti Rupa. We have seen snake yesterday. The snake memory is there. We are superimposing that snake on that curved entity called a rope. Similarly, when we look at this world, through the prism of Nama and Rupa, we see so many manifold entities are in this world. And we identify ourselves with those things. But when we get Brahmajnanam, then only we realize that these are only relative. Remember, Vyavaharika is not asat. If you look at the objections against Advaita coming from Dvaitins and Vishtadvaitins, you often find they refuse to accept the Advaitin doctrine of this called the Saptatraya, means the absolute reality, Brahman, which never came into existence and therefore never will cease to exist. It is already existing there all the time, so it cannot come into existence. It is already there. And again, existence means something like a transition from a state of empirical non-existence to existing, like something that is born. It is transition from a state of non-existence to existence called Janma, birth. There is no time when Brahman doesn't exist. So Brahman cannot come into existence. There is no time when Brahman will cease to exist, because Brahman is always existing. So it is beyond time, space and causation, beyond past, present and future, beyond the Shadvikara, Shadvikaras, etc. Now Ramanuja says, what is the locus of this avidya? Brahman or Jiva? So, of course, it cannot be Jiva because Jivatva itself is the result of avidya. So it should be locus should be Brahman. If Brahman is the locus of something that is called ignorance, then that Brahman cannot be Paramarthika Satta. So, in answer to this, Madhusudana Saraswati replies in Advaita Siddhi. It's a very little dialectical, but anyway, we can try to make an attempt in a small little time. Madhusudana Saraswati is the greatest Advaitin belonging to the 16th and 15th century, 15th, 16th century. He wrote this well-known book, magnum opus called Advaita Siddhi. It's a very well-known book. His greatness is that he takes up the objections of Dvaitins, primarily Vyasatirtha, who wrote the greatest dialectical work of Dvaita tradition called Nyayamrutam. In Nyayamrutam, Vyasatirtha, the follower of Madhvacharya, he takes up 5 definitions of Mithyatvam from 4 important books, and then he tries to demolish them. The first one is Sadasatta Anadhikaranatumva Mithyatvam. It is from Panchapadika by Padmapadacharya, who was a disciple of Shankaracharya. What he says is, the locus of something which is neither absolute existence nor absolute non-existence. In other words, avidya is neither absolute existence or absolute non-existence. It is something that you think is real, but really it is not there. You can very easily understand. When you reach Brahmajnanam, what really happens? If you read Jivanmukti Vivekananda, you don't understand. It's like coming from a sleep. You know, when you are dreaming, the dream objects are real to you. You think dream objects are dream objects. You are dreaming only, not in dream, but when you come out of dream, you think you are dreaming. So, anadi maya supto yatha jiva prabuddhiti ajamanidram asupnam advaidam vidyate tatha. Gaudapada in Gaudapada Karika says, we are all in deep slumber. So far as Vedanta Jnana, Atma Jnanam is concerned. And when a teacher comes and gives you the Advaita Anubhuti, Tattvamasi Mahavakya, then when you meditate, when you do Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, then when you realize Brahman is only reality, till then you think dream objects are real. Like that, all these things are real, we think. You know, when we get a report from a medical doctor that we have an illness, we become shocked, we become practically restless, disturbed. If you can imagine, well, the body is bound to fall sick. Body is not meant to exist for all times. Vedanta has got a very practical utility. Even when you are trying to get a job, if you can remember, everything in this world is within time, is changing. It is impermanent. Just as the condition of being employed is limited or impermanent, the condition of being unemployed also is impermanent. If you can remember this, we can go for treatment, but there is no need to feel disturbed. So the first definition of Padmapada is Mithyatvam or avidya is nothing but something which neither absolute existence or absolute non-existence. The second objection from Ramanuja is this Tirodhana Anubhavati. He says, now remember this, I don't know, Maharaj, this is a bit too, should I change the tone? I can make it a little more closer to our times, that will be better. It's become too dialectical, so I shall come to something more interesting, Advaita. Anyway, the point is, in short, I shall make a statement, then I will come to something that's maybe more closer to your practical life and experience, modern times. There are 5 definitions. One is Sadastanigatva Midhyatum, Pradivano Badu, Pradigalik Nisheda Priyutva Midhyatum, that is, and Jnana Nivartitva Midhyatum. This is from Panchapadya Vivarana. Then, of course, this is called Sat Viviktatva Midhyatum in Nyaya Deepavali. Now, Advaita, which is the essence of Asti-Bhati-Priyam, can be very useful in our everyday life. I am coming to that. If you can just practice Advaita, you can use Advaita in your everyday activity, whatever may be your job. Advaita tells you Brahman is only reality, but the second proposition, Jagat Mithya, is something very valuable, very practical. In our everyday life, whenever we come across something unpleasant, something difficult to bear, we can remember everything in this world is relative. It's not absolutely unreal, but remains for some time and then will disappear. So the very mithyatvam, the fact that everything in this world is impermanent, only relative, itself can be a great source of relief for anyone living in this world. That's why I said pure Advaita is simple common sense. The greatest danger is Advaita is frequently wrongly interpreted as a life-negating, world-negating philosophy. Advaita is a way of understanding the world and dealing with the world with full confidence and strength and full understanding of the nature of the world. Everything in this world is subject to change. When we are happy, we are happy. For some time, at that moment, we think this happy situation will continue for all time. It is something permanent. But in life, we cannot have a complete, unbroken succession of happy experiences. Later, happiness will give to unhappiness. So when we become unhappy, we somehow forget that this unhappy situation also is impermanent. Somehow we believe that this unhappiness is going to be permanent all the time. And that's what really makes us miserable. That's why Shankaracharya makes a statement in the Mandukya Bhashya. He says, Karmanishthāyaha chittasiddhidvarena purushartha hedutana swatantrena jnananisthādu swatantrena purushartha heduhu anyan apeksha. If we can practice now everyday life, this swadharma or karmanistha, doing everything with a sense of sanctity and sacredness, with full enthusiasm, at the same time, remembering that everything in this world is subject to change. So Mithyatvam is an Advaitic doctrine, can have a very practical value in our everyday life in confronting our daily problems in life. Everything in this world is changed. So whatever we do with our mind, our senses, with a sense of sanctity and sacredness, as Swadharma, that will slowly will give our mental purity, and immediately once purity is achieved, the reality of Advaita will become a real reality for us. Shankaracharya makes a statement, Prag Brahmarma Vijnana Sarva Loka Vivekaranam Satyito Vapattihi Yatha Swapnadashta Siva Prabodhat. Prag Brahmarma Vijnana Sarva Loka Vivekaranam Satyito Vapattihi means till we get Brahmajnanam, we should live in this world. This is coming from Shankaracharya. Don't think he was a dreamer or just a transcendental mystic. He says, till we reach Brahmajnanam, we should live in this world, do our duty, thinking as if this world is real. As if. The world is not real, the world is subject to changes. world is real in the sense it is absolute reality, is impermanent, real in the vyavaharika sense, empirical sense, but not real in the absolute transcendental sense. So once we can live in this world, thinking that this world is real because we have not realized the relativity of the world. For somebody who has not attained Brahmajnanam, you should live in this world thinking that everything is real. Sarva loka vivakaranam satyito vaptihi. Every action in this world, every activity in this world is real. And do with all sincerity. Then what happens is, as a result of this, we become Brahmajnanis. Not directly, that is, gradually. Karmanishthaya chitta suddhidvarena. Every activity done with unselfishness, a total dedication, and absolute efficiency will take us closer to chitta suddhi. And when mind is pure, immediately the reality of Brahman becomes real for us. So Advaita can be very practical. If you look at Asti-Bhati-Priyam, it is a very high doctrine. It's a transcendental doctrine. But then, the same higher spiritual truth can be used for our everyday life. Brahman is only reality, everything in this world is relative. So, including whatever we experience, what we confront is relative. Once we can think of this, then Advaita becomes simple. In the Gita, there is another very clear statement by Lord Krishna. Saktaha karmani avidvamso yadha kurvanti bharata kuryat vidvan tatha asaktaha chikishuhu lokasangraham. It's a great statement in the Gita. Lord Krishna is talking about two types of people in this sloka. Saktaha and asaktaha. Those who are obsessed with the world, those who cannot practice karma yoga. Whatever they do, they want immediate result. When they are doing their work, they are fully engrossed in their work, selfish motive. With all enthusiasm, they do that. Such people, you know what they do? They work very hard, but they also suffer from anxieties, worries about the results of their actions. Because they are avidya, they don't know karma yoga, they don't know the jagat mithyatvam of Advaita. When namam rupa, everything which is name and form will change. Form will change, and when the form changes, a new name also will come. At the same time, those who are spiritually endowed, kuryan vidwan tatha asaktaha, chigishu loka sangraham. Those who are endowed with spirituality, with Dwan, they will work with the same efficiency, with the same enthusiasm, but without anxiety and worry. Lord Krishna does a very wonderful comparison with two types of people. One person, he works very hard, but every minute he is suffering because he is worried, anxious about the result. Full of motive, full of ambitions, full of that desire for enjoying the results of his actions. So, and then, if the results are not up to expectations, they become disappointed. If the results are beyond expectation, they become overjoyed. On the other hand, the other person, asaktaha, vidwan, that's the word used in this verse, he is doing work with the same efficiency, at the same time with zero anxiety, because he is asakta, is not attached. Here is an important point. With that I shall conclude. The word asakti or asaktaha, saktaha, these two words are used here. It's very important. It doesn't mean that you can be indifferent, you should be indifferent, you should be lazy, you should be negligent in doing the work. Attachment in raga, the word used in Sanskrit, raga. The real implication in the commentaries is this: obsessive attachment to something that makes you slave of your own work. That is the real meaning of raga. This often or sakti, asakti. This often, when translated in English, means non-attachment. Sometimes it creates serious problems. In Western countries, I have confronted this. Families are broken up. Children won't care for parents, parents won't care for children. They need a little attachment actually for keeping the family together. So we tell them you should be totally non-attached. They will have a totally different meaning, and that will be very, very, very unfortunate. So the real meaning of asakti or raga used in Sanskrit language, the real meaning in English is obsessive attachment to something, that you become enslaved by your own desire. You want to get out of it, but you are obsessively enslaved, entangled. You are bound to your own desire, though you want to come out of it. This is the real meaning of asakti or raga, not the superficial meaning of the English translation non-attachment. That's only very fragmentary, tiny fragment of the real implication. And anasakti, with Gandhi's anasakti yoga, the real meaning of anasakti is freedom from this obsessive attachment, not being obsessively entangled or attached or enslaved by your own desire. Like you being bound by a chain, you want to come out of it. So, if we can practice Jagat Mithyatvam, is an important preposition in Advaita, the next part of it, that is Nama and Rupa constitute Mithyatvam, Jagat. If we can understand Nama and Rupa will continuously change. Once we understand, we can live in this world, we can work hard, achieve great things. Also keep in mind, these things won't last for long. They are not Brahman, they are not Asti-Bhati-Priyam. Rather, these things will change. Today's success becomes tomorrow's failure. That again becomes day after tomorrow's success. Nama Rupa changes. Jagat Mithyatvam. These are the... Now, this idea is being subjected to very elaborate philosophical discussions by Advaitins and Dvaitins primarily. The greatest opposition to Advaita came from Dvaitas and not from Visishtadvaita. The Visishtadvaita tradition, only when Ramanuja came, Sudarsana Suri wrote Sudaprakashika and Vedanta Desika. And after that, there was not much work in the post Vedanta Desika period in Visishtadvaita. But in Dvaita Siddhanta, Madhvacharya was a huge muscular man who believed in Panchabheda Siddhanta and also his own funny doctrine of eternal damnation, the very polar opposite of Advaita. So, Jayatirtha, Vadatirtha, Vyasatirtha, Trivikrama Pandita, all these great scholars from Dvaita tradition, they wrote very elaborate books criticizing Advaita, mostly by branding Advaita as Mayavada, which it is not, it is only Brahmavada. So their main opposition was against Mithyatvam. And again and again they tried to equate Mithyatvam to Asat. No, Shankaracharya did not equate Mithyatvam with Asat or Vyavaharika Satta with Asat. Asat means something that you cannot even think of. Say for example, Sasavishana, Vandhyaputra, all these are examples as Asat. Sasavishana means the horns of a hare. If it is a hare, it may not have horns. It cannot have horns. If the animal has got horns, it cannot be hare. Like that. Now the point is, in the philosophical confrontation between post-Madhvacharya, Dvaitins and Madhusudana Saraswati, this is a very wonderful dialectical warfare that happened. In a way, you have to remember, there were great pandits and scholars who did not fight with their arms, they fought with their brain. So if a Dvaitin gets angry, he will sit and write a big book. He will not go to war with Advaitins. That's the glory of India. When I go to Western countries, Europe, America, when you talk about this, they're surprised because the only thing they know about is the Calvinists and the Martin Luther and Catholics burning the non-Catholics, burning at stake. You know all the stories of Europe, you can imagine. But here our scholars, whether Vyasadeva wrote a very big book, Nyayamrita. And Madhusudana lived in Benares, studied Vyasatirtha's book, and then every day he wrote his refutation. And Madhusudana's own disciple, after studying Advaita Siddhi, every day he wrote a refutation of Advaita Siddhi. It's a glorious time of India. I shall finish this with one important episode that is a very touching episode. I should finish 5 minutes. One of the, of course, you know very well that there are 3 prasthanas during the post-Shankara period. One is Vivarana Prasthana, which actually Panchapadika was written by Padmapada, then Panchapadika Vivarana was written by Prakashatmayati, then Vivarana Prameya Sangraha, and so on. Vivarana Prasthana. One school, Shankaracharya belonged to Vivarana Prasthana. Another school, Bhamati Prasthana, written by Vajaspati Misra, wrote Bhamati Tika on a large portion of Brahma Sutra Bhashya. The one is Vartika Prasthana, that is Brihadani Bhashya Vartika by Sureshwara. Now there is something very interesting about Vajaspati. Actually, it's a glorious phase in the history of India's philosophical tradition. Vajaspati, according to one tradition, had already started writing this Bhamati Tika. The beginning itself is very funny. Long objection, Purva Paksha. And after some time, if you are going to raise all these objections, this is the way I am going to reply. Now, very interesting. Anyway, those who studied this book will find it very enjoyable. Anyway, so I am coming to that subject. Now, Vajaspati had already started writing this book. Then he married. He continued writing. Now, after many years, one day, he had become old by then. He was writing the book, about to complete. At that time, in the evening, he saw his wife. By that time, she had become old. Remember, this man started writing the book before he married. There's no problem for him. The lady was even greater than him because she could support him. That shows the greatness of Indian women at that time. And one day evening, the light was slowly fading away, and the lady came and pouring some oil in the lamp that is fading away. And then he saw, who's an old woman is helping me. He didn't remember. He had not even looked at the lady since his marriage. Then he recognized his own wife. Years ago, he had married her, and she also, with all respect and reverence, helped him, supported his writing this famous book. Then he remembered, as a compensation, as a penance for not negligence, but lady was equally great. Without her, he would not have written this book. So her name was Bhamati. So that book was given to this Bhamati Tika, which is the foundation of Bhamati Prasthana. So when you talk about this incident, not a myth, but just a great historical event, when you mention this to Western audience, something like that could not be even conceived of in Western culture tradition. A young man, starting to write a famous philosophical classic, he marries, and he never even bothered about the Grihasthasrama, and the lady was even greater than him, and she, with all reverence, supported him, did not even interfere with his writing this book. So, these are some of the great things about India's cultural tradition. Thank you, Namaste.
Om Mitagne Daika Shakti Ramakrishne Sitahiya Sarva Vidya Surupam Tam Sharada Pranamami. So such a great pleasure to listen to Maharaj. Actually, perhaps whole night he can talk. There's so much, such a vast storage of knowledge accumulated over so many years. He's also like that. He keeps on poring over his books. Ashrama goes on beautifully because he has got good board members and others. So, Shri Maharaj belongs to a rare breed of scholars. Nowadays, now even most of our Swamis also, we talk very, even good speakers. We speak generally from a very practical standpoint, not so much into depth. Take a basic idea of Advaita to explain, but with such a scholarly depth, we have very, very few sadhus of that type. So please wait. Maharaj may do a 3-day full retreat next year in Jalangi. All of you should come. Then we'll have a full arts content discussion on Vedanta. Once again, Maharaj, we humbly offer our thanks to you for sparing time and giving us so much joy in such a short time. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.